Hi, hello, and welcome back to my series of reading books that were turned into movies that I didn't know were originally books. The title will forever be workshopped, who knows. Anyway, in the first episode, I did The Electric State. And in this episode, another sci-fi movie book combo. So recently, my husband was reading this article about how this early mid-90s movie didn't get enough love when it first came out and that it deserves a rewatch. And so that movie is Johnny Mnemonic, starring Keanu Reeves. And I was like, oh, interesting. I don't remember anything about this movie. I don't think I've ever seen this movie. And when I proceeded to do a little bit of research, lo and behold, Johnny Mnemonic is based off of a short story by William Gibson called Johnny Mnemonic. And William Gibson actually had a part in the production of the movie. I went and did a further bit of research and found that he's got a whole short story collection in this sci-fi vein called Burning Chrome. Fortunately for me, my library has a copy. So I figured, since I just recently saw the movie and it was, it was early mid-90s graphics and styling, it was definitely out there. It was really interesting to see some of the casting choices that they had, and I thought was really kind of cool. I always get a big kick when I see Henry Rollins in a movie because I know him as the singer of the punk rock band Black Flag. I'm gonna go ahead and read the short story. There's really not much to this. I mean, this whole book is, under 200 pages. I figure why not just go ahead and read the entire short story collection. And so I'm gonna go ahead and do that and see how the first story compares to the movie. And once I have done that, I will give you an update. I will see you in a bit. Okay, bye. Alright, so I have finished the short story, Johnny Mnemonic. I believe I did mention that I was potentially going to read the entire short story collection. I have decided not to proceed with that. I just don't think William Gibson's writing is for me per se. While I did enjoy the short story of Johnny Mnemonic, I struggled a bit with the writing, I think. I think that's my issue with it, because William Gibson essentially was creating this sci-fi world and just creating terminology not based on actual science. I mean, that's how it feels to me, at least. So I did finish Johnny Mnemonic. I would say 3.5 stars. So the premise of the short story is, and I obviously can't really fully explain without giving away too many spoilers, so I'm gonna try and be as spoiler free as possible. But essentially, Johnny Mnemonic is this character who is kind of what's that Jason Statham movie where he delivered the transporter? Johnny Mnemonic is essentially the transporter, except for digital information stored in his brain. He has no access to it, and when he has dispelled this information, he doesn't remember anything about it. Currently, Johnny Mnemonic has this large portion of data saved in his brain for the character Ralphie, who Johnny wants him to take this data and just be done with it to clear up space in his brain. The only way that Johnny Mnemonic is able to regain that space is if Ralphie provides the passcode. Johnny meets up with Ralphie, and in this interaction, he runs into this other character of Molly Millions, who, I'm sorry, I am in love with this character of Molly Millions. And essentially, Johnny hires her to be his bodyguard, and as they are taking Ralphie out of the nightclub where they have met, they run into some sort of assassin that has been sent by the Yakuza, because it turns out that this data stored in Johnny Mnemonic's head is Yakuza information. From there, it's basically just Molly and Johnny trying to escape this Yakuza assassin and so it's just about Johnny and Molly making their way up to low-tech area where they eventually face off with the Yakuza assassin. And you also meet a drug-addicted cybernetic dolphin who helps Johnny get rid of the information out of his brain. And so that's a short story. And repeating back what I just read, like, yeah, okay, I did have a good time with it. It was on the difficult side of reading, but I had a good time with that short story. Now, in comparison with the movie follows Johnny Mnemonic, who decides to take on this data transporting job from Ralphie, except that in the movie, Johnny technically doesn't have enough space in his brain to hold the entire information. So essentially, if he doesn't get rid of the information as soon as possible, like, his brain is gonna like explode. His brain's gonna go to mush, essentially. Now, in the movie, the code is done in a series of pictures, I believe it was, and I believe there were like 3 or 4 different pictures that you needed for the code, and Johnny was missing 1 or 2 of the pictures. In the movie, they're also trying to extract, like physically extract the information from Johnny's brain at one point, which doesn't happen in the story. And in fact, it specifically states that that cannot happen in the story. That Johnny Mnemonic is literally the perfect data transporter because he is essentially completely unhackable without a code. You can't forcibly remove it, you can't hack to remove it. So the only thing you can do is figure out the code, which is what him and the drug-addicted cybernetic dolphin did. Anyway, also in the movie, the character of Molly Millions is replaced by the character Jane, who, while both exhibit strong female characteristics, I personally preferred Molly Millions' character. They tried like this weird little like love angle between Johnny and Jane in the movie, which I personally felt was unnecessary. And then they also created this whole story about this information essentially being information that's going to take down like this big evil corporate entity, which I feel was like the big thing during this time. The movie was made in 1995 and I feel like that was like, you know, damn the man, save the empire kind of a time period. So there was that. There was a whole like disease that was happening that I didn't really fully understand. Some of this is probably due to me not paying enough attention to the movie when it was playing, but I wasn't fully captivated. So, and then there were some Yakuza assassins, but then there was also like this killer priest guy who was played by Dolph Lundgren, and it was just, a lot of it was very weird and so unnecessary, I personally feel. I believe that this isn't the original movie that the director and William Gibson had wanted. It was turned into like a blockbuster, which was not what I think the vision was necessarily intended for. Which, I mean, if we go by what the story is, that definitely is not the intention of the story. My personal feelings, The movie was maybe 2, between 2 and 3 stars. It was not my favorite movie. When I was looking into reviews for the movie for this video, I was seeing some discourse about Keanu Reeves being miscast as Johnny Mnemonic, and I disagree with that. I believe that if people had read the story, they would possibly understand that Keanu Reeves, I personally feel, makes a great Johnny Mnemonic. It is the characters around him, well, except for Ralphie, the person that they cast to play Ralphie, he was also very excellent, but the character inspired by Molly Millions was, was miscast, and also I don't feel written in the movie nearly as well as in the short story. Molly Millions was just such a badass character in the short story. I mean, in the short story, Molly Millions was really the hero. Johnny Mnemonic was just kind of the guy who had shit stuck in his head that needed saving. And with that being said, I am 2 for 2 with the stories being better than the movies. Alright, books first, movies, and books are winning 2-0. I will catch you all in the next one. Alright, bye.